Hi everyone, welcome along and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Chantal Brodrick and it's my pleasure to welcome you and be your host for today's webinar about music licensing and the fitness sector. Now, if you've ever wondered if you need a license for the music that you're playing, then you've definitely come to the right place. Now, during today's webinar, we're going to learn a little bit about OneMusic and why it exists. And then we'll delve into three areas. First of all, understanding the fitness music licensing scheme, then how your choice of a music device or music supplier affects your licensing fees, and lastly, how to ensure that your fees match your current business operations. Now, we'll get into the webinar shortly, but first of all, on behalf of AUSactive and OneMusic, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the many lands from which we are viewing today's webinar. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Now, today's webinar will be presented by Jeremy Davidson, the National Licensing Manager at OneMusic Australia. Also joining us from the OneMusic team and here to help answer any questions that you might have during the session, we've got Account Manager Ewan Jansen and Licensing Representatives Carolyn Lee, James Mackey. Now, without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce the National Licensing Manager of OneMusic Australia, Jeremy Davidson. Over to you, Jeremy.
Thanks so much, Chantal. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. If there's one thing I know about the fitness sector, it's they love getting into the nitty-gritty of intellectual property at lunchtime on a Wednesday afternoon. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to do the old share screen thing and we'll get started. So hopefully that will pop up momentarily. You will see Chantal and me there. So what are we doing today? What I thought we'd do is really just take you through a bit of a copyright 101, music copyright 101, as it relates to the music use in the fitness industry. So what are we going to do today? We are going to understand a little bit, first and foremost, understand a little bit about what OneMusic is all about, why we're around, specifically understanding how we license music in the fitness industry, how you use music, how that affects your license, and also, as Chantal mentioned, how to ensure your fees match your current business use. So let's dive in, shall we? What is OneMusic? Well, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, once upon a time, there was two separate organisations. One was AUSactive and one was the PPCA. Now, whenever a business in Australia uses music in a commercial setting, under the Copyright Act of 1968, a licence is required. And AUSactive and the PPCA were the organisations that administered the licences on behalf of music creators. Now, they dealt in two sort of separate areas of copyright. So to give you a bit of background, AUSactive are the organisation that looks after the rights of the songwriter, the person that writes the song, whereas the PPCA looked after the rights of the person that recorded the song. To give you a working example, and I always show my age when I give this example, I should probably use Tay-Tay really, actually, because she's been in town, but I always use our Kylie Minogue. Let's go homegrown. Kylie sings the songs, but God bless her, she doesn't always write the songs. So APRA would look after the right of the songwriter or Joe Smith, whoever wrote that song, and the PPCA would look after the rights of Kylie, as well as anyone else that performed, like session musicians. All very confusing, right? So AUSactive and PPCA had a little baby called OneMusic. So OneMusic is the combination of AUSactive and the PPCA for the purposes of licensing to make things easier for you. So OneMusic is now your one-stop shop, I suppose you'd say, for music licensing in Australia. Little factoid. Straight up, 95% of people say exercise with music is more enjoyable than without, which is, I'm sure, pretty obvious to you all already. Why do I need a license? So why do we need a music license? So I just sort of mentioned the Copyright Act of 1968 states that where music is used in a business, it is a legal requirement that a license is required. There's a few places you can get more information on this, and we're going to pop up, as Chantal mentioned, an email at the end. So feel free to shoot us any questions you may have. But there is also sort of general information about copyright in your business from copyright.org.au, as well as the Australian Business Licence Information Service as well, for some more general information. It's also about respect and having respect for music creators and for the arts as a whole. And as we just looked at, music is essential to business, no more so than the fitness industry, obviously. Again, you guys are pretty across that. That's why you're here. As I mentioned, we're going to pop up a email later, but we do have plenty of resources on our OneMusic website, and obviously there's a way to get in contact with us there as well. So do feel free later on to jump online and have a bit of a click around. Plenty of FAQs there, as well as ways to get in contact with us. But how do we know the music that you're using is protected by copyright? I think I've got a little map here. So APRA also, well, APRA, AMCOS, PPCA, and therefore OneMusic have reciprocal agreements with collecting organisations across the world, meaning that the vast majority of recorded music, if you are obtaining that from a commercial source, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, generally speaking, will require a license. There are instances where that is not the case, where you may be using royalty-free music. But generally speaking, if you are using commercially sourced music, a license will be required from OneMusic Australia. If you're overseas, a license would be required from whatever collecting society would be in that country. And as I mentioned, we have reciprocal agreements. So money collected for Australian artists overseas are sent back to us, and vice versa. How your choice of music, or a music device, I should say, or music supplier affects your license fees. So you pay for a music service, do you still need a license? Question that comes up all the time. Where, as I mentioned, where you are using a commercial music service, generally speaking, a license is required. Why is that? Well, I pay for Spotify, I pay for YouTube, I pay for Apple Music, etc., etc. Why do I still need a license? You might even be using a background music service, which might be providing a bespoke solution for your business. I've popped up there a lot of different music suppliers that we deal with. So the top two there, Spotify and Apple Music, obviously commercial companies, and then some specific music suppliers below that. It states in Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube's terms and conditions that they are for personal use only. So when you are bringing those into a commercial environment, you need a license to play those in public, as I mentioned before. Now, you might be using a Nightlife or another such music supplier. Music suppliers can supply music, but they can't collect rights on the behalf of songwriters. So you still may need a license even if you are using a commercial music supplier. Again, any questions, get in contact with us. More than happy to answer any questions you have. I mean, the example there is Les Mills, for example, which we're going to go into a little bit more detail a little bit later on. What types of music apply fitness and the wellbeing sector. So basically, we're going now into a little bit more detail into the license structure in particular. Our license covers both fitness instructors and fitness centres, and generally we're looking at breaking down music use in a fitness environment into a few different categories. So there can be background or arrival music, music in classes. We have an all-inclusive tariff, which we'll go through momentarily, as well as digital copy and delivery, which we'll explain too. So what is background or arrival music? This is probably fairly self-explanatory, but that is, as it says, background music. So if I'm in a gym and there is just general music playing in the background in the weight room, that is what we would consider background music. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is what is music in classes. Now, again, relatively simple if you are having dedicated fitness classes. So it's directed by a fitness instructor, and there is a published timetable on your website or in advance, and they're not virtual classes, so they're not online. We enact the fitness classes tariff. Now that one, while the background music tariff, we calculate on the number of members. The music in classes depends on the number of classes. Again, a copy of our license, as well as an FAQ, are available on the OneMusic website, which you can take a look at as well. What's all-inclusive? So all-inclusive we developed specifically for clients that had a high class number, but perhaps a lower membership rate. So that is just a single rate that covers all your music use for the entire year, which really becomes more beneficial, again, as I said, for your cases where you've got a high number of class numbers. So we might be pushing to a very high fee if we were just to calculate it on classes. We have made that an all-inclusive, more affordable package. What's digital copy and delivery? Well, the clues in the picture next to it there, we've got a couple of digital music services. Digital copy and delivery goes back to the days of dubbing. They used to call it the dubbing license. So if you would dub a tape or then a CD, you were seen to be copying a source of music. So then copying was a separate license, and that has continued into the digital realm. So whenever you are essentially playing music from a cached music source, which is something like Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, etc., the Copyright Act sees that as a copy, so an additional fee is required. Generally speaking, as I mentioned before, on the all-inclusive package that is included, or if you are just using perhaps background music, or if you are just using music in classes, the tariff is added on top. So a few examples there of digital music services that would require digital copy and delivery. What other types of music use apply to fitness and the wellbeing sector? Look, mention this because we've got to include it on the application. Telephone on hold and music on websites. Obviously, they're rare. They're not sort of happening as much as they used to, and we very rarely enact those, but I thought I'd just pop them there to mention it. How can I use music on social media? Is this covered by a OneMusic license? Look, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because essentially, no, it doesn't. That is a different kind of licensing that is dealt with by a different part of the APRA organisation. So whenever you are, just really briefly, whenever you are matching video content to audio content, what's happening is what's called a synchronization is taking place. What you're essentially doing is aligning your music aligning music to a piece of visual. So essentially you're branding. So commercial use requires specific permission, and that is dealt with by the media licensing department here at APRA AMCOS. Again, if you jump to the APRA AMCOS website, you'll find a little bit more information about that. So that is a separate agreement, which is not covered here on our OneMusic license, but I thought I would mention that. Question we get asked a lot. Individual instructors is on the payroll of a larger health club. Who's responsible for the license? Generally speaking, I'm going to do this in reverse order. If an instructor is putting on a class in an established fitness or business venue, then the license, generally speaking, sits with the business that is authorising those classes, that is authorising that music use. However, we often license fitness instructors that might be doing fitness classes in different locations throughout their week, for example, in parks or in locations such as a hall, where those instructors are doing those classes, they would take out an individual license. For example, if you had a instructor that was perhaps doing some classes in a established business venue as well as doing their own, they would be able to take out a license for simply the classes that they weren't doing in that established business venue. PPCA free, what's a partial rights deduction? I think I mentioned, we do get asked this a lot. I think I mentioned Les Mills before. This is a great example. So sometimes, and generally this is in the realm of music suppliers, commercial music suppliers supplying music that perhaps are re-records, perhaps cover versions of the original songs. I'm sure many of you familiar, or perhaps even are Les Mills instructors. That is the perfect example in this scenario. Because of the nature of those re-recordings, they're not the original recordings, are they? So they don't require the PPCA portion of the license. They are still being communicated in public, however, so they still require the APRA AMCOS portion. So what can we do? So we provide that partial rights deduction, meaning you can get a discount on your license if you are specifically using those types of music. Again, generally speaking, if you are using a commercial music product like Spotify, like Apple Music, etc., this is not enacted. Generally speaking, it sits with music suppliers. Annual reviews of music use. Get my lips around that one this afternoon. So basically, all we're really, and I mean, I'm sure this is going to probably pop up in some questions, but all we're really saying is, if you've got any questions, our licenses roll over annually, and that's an opportunity for your good selves to get in contact with us, and if we need, have a chat to us about what's been going on, and it's a chance for you to review how you've been using music. It's not uncommon at all, obviously, when a new business begins, that may be forecasting for a certain number of members, and that may change throughout the year. So we're always here to answer any questions and adjust if necessary. Wouldn't be OneMusic presentation without the classic question, where does the money go? Where does the money go? Great, it's a great question, and it's an important question. Before I move on to Audoo, which fits into this point. So what OneMusic does is we collect a host of data, reams of data from a variety of different sources, be they digital music sources like Spotify. Spotify reports their music use to us. Apple Music reports their music to us. YouTube. Broadcast licenses, so television networks, radio networks, reams of data are coming into us every month reporting on the music use. We then take all of that money and then distribute based off that data. That is the fairest way that we can distribute that money. And that was voted on as the best way by our membership. So a little bit of information about how we pay out royalties. Now, I know for a fact that on the APRA AMCOS website, if you want a little bit of light weekend reading, you can read our distribution practices in their entirety. So you can read about how different pools work, how where money's coming from, how they filter through to different pools and how they're distributed. So feel free to jump on there and get into the nitty-gritty detail if you need. I just want to let you know that information is available there for you if you were curious. Wanted to mention Audoo meters here. Brickhouse Gym up in Queensland has one of these at the moment. Audoo are a company out of England, out of the UK, who are sort of on the forefront of trying to get distribution to be even more equitable. So these are audio meters. So they register exactly what music is being played and then reports that directly back to us. So we can be even more accurate in the future with our distribution. So more information about that on the OneMusic site. You can actually apply to have one of these in your business. So it's really, really great to see that steps are being made in this space. And I think we're only going to see more and more of this in the future. So jump online and have a look at what they're doing. That's me. I'll probably race through it. So we've got time for some questions. I'll pop this up just so everyone can see it on the screen there. fitness@onemusic.com.au is the email. So feel free to shoot us any questions, and you'll see there onemusic.com.au/fitness. We'll give you some specific information about fitness licensing, but onemusic.com.au has plenty of general information there as well. So what I might do, Chantal, you might have a few questions.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Stop sharing one moment. I'm just going to stop sharing.
Awesome.
There I am. Oh God, how's
There
my head? Yeah.
Jeremy, thank you so much for that information. Thank you for sharing that. And I do want to just say thank you to everyone that has been asking questions throughout. I know that the team have been answering those as you were doing your presentation. So thank you for that. One of the things I did want to mention and just remind everyone is that, yes, you can get a recording of this webinar afterwards. AUSactive will be sending out that recording after the session today. Now, Jeremy, I thought
my dulcet tones all.
That's right. That's right.
While you're reading our distribution practices, you can listen to me.
That's right.
Talk about fitness licensing.
Now, I was writing down a few questions myself as you're going, so I hope you don't mind because I'm going to hit you up.
Sure. Absolutely.
More information. One of the slides that you talked about, you were talking about background music and class music, and you were talking about differentiation. Tell us why a license would be dependent on the number of members a fitness business had. I think you referred to that with the background music piece.
That's right. Sorry. I'm more than happy to go in a little bit more detail there. And as I mentioned, please jump on our OneMusic website, and you can just have a look at our FAQ and our license. So you've got the numbers there in front of you. But you're right. So for background, simply background music, a gym might simply be an open gym. They might not have actual classes on that are timetabled. They might just be a weights room, and they just have music going in the background. So we calculate that by the number of members. Now, sometimes we understand that it might not always be easy to record the exact number of members that you might have, and that might fluctuate over a given period. So we try to be as accurate as we can, but we completely understand that music licensing isn't always an exact science. As I mentioned, I think in the review slide, that's why we're here. We understand that things change, and we're always here to help as things fluctuate, as your members fluctuate. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Thank you so much for that, Jeremy. Okay, my next question for you is this: if someone has a business that has multiple premises, so multiple locations, just remind us, is it one license required per business, or does the one license then cover multiple premises?
Yeah, it's a great question. And where a business might have multiple locations, a license is required to cover each of those locations. So if you are a business that has 5 gyms, for example, you would require a license for each of those 5 gyms. Do you know what I mean? And we can look. This is getting into the nitty-gritty of administration, which isn't that interesting, but we can set that up in a number of different ways. Yeah, but basically, to answer your question, if each gym would require its own license. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. Now, I'm sure that we've got a number of people that are on the webinar today that maybe operate their businesses. Maybe they're a trainer that operates out of a park or a community centre. And you did touch on this when we were talking about instructors that operate, but just go through for us again. What is the license requirement for trainers that do operate, let's say, from a public park or from a community centre?
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, I guess a good way to look at it is where a trainer might be, again, working in a park or working in or providing a class in a park or providing a class in a community centre, et cetera, et cetera. Music is still being used in public. Therefore, music is still being used in a commercial setting. So a license is still required. So the fitness instructor can get in contact with us and we can license those classes for them, no problems at all. The other situation which I alluded to sort of briefly is where we have instructors that might do both. You know what I mean? An instructor might be in a gym some days and they might be doing their own thing other days. So as I said, where they're working in a big gym, or fitness centre, a big box gym, etc., it would be the organisation. Those covers are going to be, those classes will be covered at the organisational level. But they can then take out a licence if they're on the weekend doing classes in a community centre, in a public park. They can take out a licence simply for those classes that they're doing that sit outside those gyms. Yeah. Again, any questions? Shoot us an email.
Well, actually, my next question probably slightly alludes to what you just said, and that is maybe someone's maybe they have one particular situation, or they for a set amount of time, and maybe they change. Perhaps they've been teaching in a large format gym, and then they end up doing some outdoor classes or doing some community classes. So, in that example, what is the best way for them to chat to the OneMusic team and to inform you guys of the change of business operations?
Absolutely. And I mean, look, this is what I was alluding to before, and we're here to help. If something changes, your circumstances change, get in contact with us, and we can adjust licenses, move things, do our best to help you out. So it's just a case of staying in contact with us as things change. You can get in contact with us via the email below, and one of the reps who have all been answering your questions can get in contact. James, I think he's online, is our ever helpful review man. So he and I are always chatting to clients who are giving us a call whose circumstances change. Because, I mean, the nature of business is volatility, right? You know, the nature of business is change, you know. So we understand that, and it's just a case of getting in contact with us here for sure.
Excellent, Jeremy. Well, look, you have done a fabulous job of answering all of my questions, and I can see that the team is busy behind the scenes answering some other questions in that Q&A there. So first of all, thank you so much for everyone that has been participating today, and hopefully, I know that there's a few comments saying it's been really informative. So
excellent.
Thank you.
I'm glad. I'm
Jeremy,
happy
for that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely music to my ears, if you'll pardon the pun. But please, as I said, fitness@onemusic.com.au, shoot us an email, and happy to sort of help out in whatever way we can. Yeah.
Excellent. And just important question. If I want one of those OneMusic stickers, yeah, how
Yeah.
do I get my hands on that so I can stick it in the front window?
Stick it in the front window.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shoot us an email. We'll get one out to you. No
Oh,
stress.
good. Good. Very important. Very important. So guys, what I'm going to do here is we will wrap up the formal part of the presentation now, but I know that the team is still in the process of answering questions in the background. So what we might do is continue that sort of conversation that's happening. And if anyone does or hasn't had the opportunity to ask a question as yet, I might just do a quick reminder on that email address one more time. I want to say it's fitness@onemusic.com.au. Does that sound right, Jeremy? Excellent.
That's it. You're spot on.
Okay, so Jeremy, thank you once again. Really appreciate you sharing
No
that
problems at all.
Before I wrap up the webinar today, I just want to remind everyone two things. First of all, yes, a recording will be sent, so you can go back and have a watch and re-listen to the information today. Second of all, there's a survey link, which I'm pretty sure may have just gone. Yes, it is. Thank you, Charlie. Charlie has just popped a survey link into the chat thread. So we would really appreciate it if you could take the time just to complete that survey about today's webinar. So if you could just click that link, go through and complete the survey, that would be excellent. So thank you so much to everyone that joined us today. It was a great group and really appreciate you interacting with Jeremy and with the team from OneMusic Australia. So on behalf of AUSactive and OneMusic Australia, thank you so much. I'm Chantal Brodrick. Jeremy, thank you once again, and we will see you next time.
See ya.